The Recognised Authority. I'm your host, Alastair McDermott, and today my guest, I'm delighted to say, is Louise McDonnell. And Louise is somebody who I have known for years now. We live in the same small corner of the world in the west of Ireland. And Louise is a social media expert and was a social media expert before there were social media experts. So for quite a long time. I have a copy of one of your books here, Facebook Marketing. I think was this your first book, Louise?
Yeah, that was my first book.
Yeah.
I was only looking through it today, trying to find something.
There you go. And Louise, you are an award-winning social media trainer and strategist. And today we're going to talk about the 6 essential steps to drive sales and leads, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Well, as listeners to the show know, I like to get straight into it. So can you tell me what are the 6 essential steps to drive sales and leads on social?
No problem. So the 6 essential steps. Number 1, the first step. Well, I suppose the first thing to start off by saying, Alastair, is that I generally encounter 3 different categories of people, or I don't know how to problems that people encounter when they're using social media. So you have category A, which are the people who know they should be using social media, but they ignore it, and they know their competitors are using it, but they still ignore it. Maybe they don't know where to start, or maybe they went gung-ho at it and they didn't get the results that they expected, so they stop in the start. So they're the first set of people. Then there's a lot of people who are very active on social media, spending a lot of time on social media, showing up and creating content, but they're really disappointed with the results that they're getting. Okay, so that's the second kind of category of people. And the third category of people are the people who only want to use paid ads. So they only want to show up. Hi, Paula McNicholas. Only want to show up when they want to sell something and when they have some money to put to it. And so again, they can be disappointed with the results that they're getting. So the 6 steps that I generally outline when I'm helping people, it helps all those different people. So if you are the first category where you have your head in the sand, you're ignoring social media, maybe you're starting, you're just not really sure what to do with it, then you need to start at the first step. And the first step is planning. Okay, so the people who want to spend as little time as possible getting the best possible results, the first thing you need to do is start off with planning. So the first thing you need to do is set your goals. So if you're a coach, if you're a consultant, and if you want to use social media to drive sales, well, you need to be very clear, first of all, of what you want to achieve by using social media. So if you're just coming to social media and posting this and that and whatever's happening and just kind of piecemeal here and there, and you're not too sure like what it is you want to achieve, or what service that you want, sales that you want to drive, well, then you're always going to be a little bit haphazard and directionless. Okay, so the step 1 is planning. It's setting those goals. Okay, being very clear on those goals. And then if you figure out how much the goal is worth to you financially, you can then also afford to allocate some budget to achieving that goal. So again, it's a very common thing that people think social media is free. Okay, and it's not. If you want to get a return, you have to be prepared to spend money. So that is step 1, planning. So if you have been ignoring social media, you don't know where to start, it could be that you just need to start by setting a plan.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you, because I know that you do work with lots and lots of different types of businesses and organizations, and you work with e-commerce providers and government organizations, but I know that you also do a lot of work with B2B organizations and people like consultants and experts and speakers and people like that. Can you tell me what is different, or what those people need to think about? So people who are in this kind of expertise type of business, how would you think about the planning step in that context?
So again, it's about being very, like, sometimes I would come across a lot of consultants and coaches, and again, back to what I just said, step 1, they're not really clear on what it is that they want to achieve. Is it a one-to-one? Is it a group scenario? Is it a program? Is it an online? Is it in person? What's the breakdown? How does it work? What did they do last year? How do they want to do this year? How does their year break down? Like, it's been getting that clarity on what they want to achieve. Which brings me to step 2, which is also going to answer your question. And step 2 then is optimizing your website and your social media channels for sales. And regardless of whether you're selling a product or service, you need to do that. So many people, their websites are just a bit vague, or their social media channels are just a bit vague, or they're not differentiating themselves enough. Or maybe they differentiated themselves enough on their website, but they haven't done it on their social media channels. Because remember, if you start creating amazing social media content and pumping it out there and getting in front of your ideal customer, first thing they're going to do is check out who you are on social media. And if you're not clear and consistent on why it is somebody should choose you, how you're different, and what you're selling, well, then you're going to miss that opportunity. So step 2 is all about optimization. And in my experience, Alastair, I can tell you hand on heart that the number one reason why social media content and paid ads don't work is because people don't do step 2 enough. They're sending people to websites or landing pages that are not converting them. Okay. So again, if you're a coach or a consultant, you're looking for leads. Okay. So how can you get somebody, get their email address, get their phone number, get something that you can follow up with. So that is step 2, step 1 and step 2. So step 1 is planning, step 2 is optimization. Step 3 then is content. Now, do you remember how I said that I had 3 categories of people? The first ones are ignoring social media. The second, people are very busy on social media, but they're not generating sales. Well, what's generally happened if you're the second category is that you skipped step 1 and step 2. So you're very busy on social media, but you don't have a clear goal and you haven't optimized your website or your social media channels, either one, or maybe both. And so in that case, you could be really, really active creating content on social media, but it's just not going anywhere because you haven't differentiated yourself, you haven't, appealed to your ideal customer, and you haven't given them a clear call to action, and you haven't compelled them to do business with you or to reach out to you. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 3 is content. So I know you're a content expert. So step 3 is all about creating content on your social media, whether that's brand awareness content or positioning content or sales content or lead magnet content or advocate content. So there's lots of different types of content. And again, we create content for our social media. We can repurpose it across our emails. We can repurpose it on our website and our blogs, our podcasts, whatever that may be. Okay, so step 3 is content. But the content has to link back to the goals in step 1, and it has to communicate the core messages that you've identified about your business in step 2. Otherwise, the content, you could be really busy, but not going anywhere with the content. Okay, so that's step 3 in my 6-step system. Step 4 then is all about targeting. Okay, so step 4 is all about making sure that you're targeting your ideal customer so that you know exactly who the ideal customer is. Now, in my experience, Alastair, people are only scratching the surface. They haven't just profiled their customer deep enough. So they're saying, oh, it's generally this age, generally that, but especially if you're a coach or consultant, okay, you want to know what the pain points are. What's the problem that you're solving? What are the language that your ideal customer is using? What does life look like for them right now? How does their problem show up? What stress does it cause them? Okay. And then how your solution is the solution for them. So that would be then step 4. Step 5 then is augmenting your organic reach, which is your non-paid for reach, with paid reach. Mm-hmm. Now, many people don't want to use paid ads or think that they shouldn't use paid ads. And I say paid ads, right? Because I know ad is paid, but if I just say ads, people don't realize I mean paid promotions, where you pay Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok, whoever it is, or Google for the promotion. But you have to reach enough people in order to generate enough leads, in order to generate enough sales. So here's an interesting one now, and I don't confuse people with statistics and maths, but I just did this analysis at one time. So let's say you have a social media ad or post that has a click-through rate of 2%, which would not be unusual. Okay, you can get much higher, but would not be unusual. And let's say you have a website you're driving people to, that you're getting people to fill out a form or a lead magnet. And let's say the conversion rate on that is also 2%. So to get 10 leads, you have to reach 25,000 people. And you'll never do that organically. Now, if you have increased your ad conversion rate to 3% and your website or your landing page conversion rate to 3%, well, then you'll get 25 sales. Or you have to reach, I think, 11,000 people to get 10 sales, something like that. So depending on organic reach, it's just, you're just never going to be, like if someone came to me in our agency and said, Louise, we want you to use our social media, but we're never going to use money. We're never going to spend any money on ads. I really wouldn't want to take them on. Because I'm like, you're never going to achieve what I could achieve for you if you let me spend some money on your behalf.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to reach enough people with the highest click-through rate possible, drive them to the highest converting website possible to generate enough leads, and then you still have to follow up on the leads and convert them.
So a follow-up question then on that. If somebody was starting out with paid ads and let's say they're doing it DIY and they don't have a huge budget. Let's say they're going to experiment and spend, say, $300-400, something like that. If somebody's going to do that, like what should they be doing in terms of like where should they be driving that traffic? What kind of offers should they optimize for? Should they be sending them to free resources like a lead magnet or something like that, or should they be sending them to a sales page for their high ticket offer? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so if you're selling a service, it's very unusual that you'd run an ad for your whatever the service is and you'll get people to sign up. It just doesn't happen. Yeah, so again, you want to be thinking more exactly what you said to like a lead magnet, a free download, a free ebook, a free worksheet, a free industry study, a free the results of a survey, a free webinar, whatever that may be. But if somebody doesn't know you, if you're targeting a cold audience, if they don't know you, well, then they need to get to know, like, and trust you. And even if they're watching you for a while on social media, it'll take, depending on what you're selling, it can take a while to warm people up, right? So if you're going to run an ad and you're going to spend $400, well, then if you're sending them to a lead magnet, then you want to be able to crunch the numbers. You want to be able to look and say, okay, I spent $400. What was the click-through rate on that ad? If the click-through rate is 1 or 2%, well, you know what? I'd be doing a little bit more work on the ad creative to get that click-through rate a little bit higher. Then when people click through to the landing page of the lead magnet, what was the conversion rate on that? If it's 1 or 2%, that's shocking. You need to get that up. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of money driving traffic there that never sign up. So you need to be looking at the numbers, crunching the numbers straight away. Click-through rate on the ad, conversion rate on the landing page. And then you got to look at all the people who signed up for the lead magnet. Then did you send an email sequence their direction? And how many people did you nurture through that funnel who eventually started to talk to you, who eventually gave you money? So that is kind of what you want to be thinking. And I always say, Alastair, and I don't know what you think about this, but I always say if you're using paid ads, that there's like three benefits of running a paid ad. Number one, if you run an ad campaign for $400 for that free lead magnet, there's the direct benefit of the people who signed up to the lead magnet and then eventually signed up for whatever product or service that you're selling, right? That's the direct benefit. Then what you'll find is that sometimes if you're running an ad for a lead magnet for a particular service, all of a sudden you'll start getting inquiries for other services that you're offering because people saw the ad and they go, oh, I need help with that. So you get the indirect benefit. That happens all the time. It's like you're advertising A and then 10 people want B, but it's okay because it's all business. And then the third benefit of running a paid ad is that you have the future benefit. The people who don't want you now, who all of a sudden you're on their radar, and they'll eventually come through in the future. Okay, so that's the benefit of paid ads. Now, again, I have to be really clear that just because you're spending money doesn't mean that it's going to be successful, because I see so many businesses wasting money on ads. So the biggest reason that people usually, apart from having a really poor converting landing page and not optimizing their website, but you also find people who are running the wrong ads. So let's say that you have that lead magnet that you wanted people to sign up to. Well, you need to be running a conversion ad where you're tracking how many people are downloading the lead magnet. And oftentimes people will run a traffic ad or a video view ad. And so the ad, you're asking them to to drive traffic or video views rather than signups. So you have to be very clear with the objective, what you want to get from the ad. And then you have to ask whatever social media platform that you're using to help you achieve that ad. And if you ask them to do a different type of ad, they'll go, okay, we got you lots of traffic or we got you lots of video views. But you say, but I didn't want that. I actually wanted signups. So running the wrong ad and expecting different results.
Yeah. It sounds tricky. There's a lot of little detail in this. There is one benefit, by the way, that I would see as well in running ads, which is that you get data. So you're not just buying the traffic itself, but you're buying the information. I think this maybe applies more to search ads than social ads, but I'm sure that there is some of that as well. But you get a lot of information about the people who are clicking or not clicking, and that can feed back then into what else you do in the future. So I think that's another potential benefit for that.
Absolutely. I mean, I've just working with a consultant who ran a webinar, and maybe I think it was 2.5 weeks ago, ran the webinar, and he's now running the webinar again next week. Okay, so after the first campaign, now we have all our benchmark. So now I say, okay, we're going to try and improve on every single part of that campaign, from click-through rate to sign-up rate to show-up rate to people who purchase the product or service actually on the day. So once you run one campaign, you now have a benchmark.
Yeah, that's a really a great way to approach, particularly when you're doing something like a webinar, which is like this kind of repeated event, because you're kind of comparing like with like there. So I think that works. Okay, so let me just recap so far. Step one, planning. And so that's where you're setting your overall goals and your budget. Step two, optimizing your website and your profile, whatever social profile it is, for sales, so that you're actually going to get leads when people arrive and look at this. And so that means that maybe thinking about where you're sending them to as well. So giving them some sort of free resource, rather if you're selling some sort of expert service, which a lot of listeners to this will be. And then step three is having some content. So I guess that means like the entire rest of your profile, not just the place that one post, but that you've got content everywhere. Is that right?
And consistently. So you need to be showing up every week with content. So
Yeah.
like you need to show up consistently week in, week out, and
And
communicating your core messages.
and okay, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. And then step four is making sure that you're targeting your ideal customer.
Yeah,
So, and that's something I think that you can do a lot of work with in the pre-planning stages.
it is
And
actually. Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of interviewing your ideal customer if you can. So getting on a call with them and just talking to them about the problem that they have, and it's a great way to get information and conduct research, which actually you can also then turn into other assets, like, for example, a book. So just to give you an example of that, I interviewed, I think, maybe 25, 30 experts and authorities about the concept of building authority. And so I was able to turn that into an authority maturity model, which is a framework that I've created, which I use in my business. And the data from that, it's also basically there's the guts of a book in that. In fact, there's probably 3 or 4 books in that. I haven't gone through it all yet, but that was from this research that I did through those calls, and also through surveys that I did. And I did these micro surveys to LinkedIn, and I got over 1,000 responses to that. And so I was able to use all of that data, which I can use for content creation, but it's also incredibly useful just for understanding your ideal client and what the problems are that they're facing, because all of that feeds back into the language that you're using on that lead magnet, on that website, on showing them that you understand their frustrations. So
Yeah, and even in your ad content to
yeah,
get their attention.
absolutely. Okay, so that's step 4, targeting your ideal customer. Step 5, adding in paid ads to
Hmm.
increase your reach.
Hmm.
And okay, that brings us to step 6. So what's step 6?
Evaluating.
Okay,
Evaluating. And you don't even wait till the campaigns are over to evaluate. You're watching straight away. So you're using that to inform the current campaign, but also future campaigns as well.
brilliant. Yeah, very very simple. I love it. Okay, so that's the overall process. Now, I do want to take a moment because I have to do a shout out to my sponsor. This show is sponsored by Authority Clips Daily, which is a service that me and my team have. So it's for people who are actually struggling to create content. So if you are struggling, you don't have time to create content, we will help you put out a video every single day on your social media. And so what we do is we will take your long form content if you already make videos or podcasts, something like that, and we'll split it up and create a 60-second video for every day. And if you don't have something like that, then I will get on a Zoom call and we'll record it and I'll interview you. So if you are somebody who is actually struggling with creating this content, we're going to help you do that. So we do a full content strategy at the start before we get going, and then we give you daily clips to put out on your social media, or we can even publish it for you. And so that is Authority Clips Daily. So if that sounds like something that is interesting, check on the links on the Recognized Authority website or in the show notes here. So Louise, I'm all about content, as you hear. Because this is something I'm not just doubling down on, tripling down on, because I think it's so important. So we're doing this live. We're doing this on multiple channels. And before we started, you asked, could I pause for a second while you went to just get ready, because we were going to do video. Because I switched, season 1 was all audio. I switched to video for season 2 so that we could repurpose this content just like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, content is where it's at. So let's talk about content then. You had a bunch of different types of interesting content that you mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about advocate content? What does that mean to you?
So advocate content is where it's like a third-party endorsement in you, in your personal brand. So it's any third-party endorsements at all, whether that be expert approval. So let's say that you're let's say you're a life coach, and let's say you won, let's say somebody from the life coach institution of wherever you got your qualification says, this is the best life coach I've ever come across. Like, that's expert approval. You can have celebrity approval. So you might have somebody with 40,000 followers on Instagram who says, my God, they're fantastic, and people will believe them. And then, of course, you have customer testimonials, which, of course, are invaluable. So we would regularly feature content like that type of content, testimonial content, across our clients' social media content strategy. So I also have a formula that I use for testimonials. So I will say, if you're going to get a testimonial from somebody, this is the best formula to use. The greatest benefit to them, okay, the time frame, and the emotions. So if you're giving me a testimonial, I don't want to hear Louise is lovely and she's very nice and she answered all my questions. That's fair enough, brilliant. But if you can say, well, within 2 months of having worked with Louise, I increased my website sales or my website leads by 50%, and I increased my business by blah, blah, blah. So what's the greatest benefit to the client? What is the greatest benefit to them? Because that is going to appeal to other people who match the profile of that customer, because they will also want to achieve that. So what's the greatest benefit? The time frame. And if you can work in the emotion, like, I'm so, I'm so relieved, or I'm so delighted, or, something like that, because people respond to emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other advocate content could be, let's say you were featured in a podcast. Like, this is my advocate content going out right now. Or let's say that you were featured on a TV show or a radio show. And like, the benefit of that is that you can use it when it's fresh and current, but you can also use it for throwback images, for years to come. So I have a photograph of me in Facebook headquarters standing up with a thumbs up sign. So I use that at least once a year. But there again, it's like an endorsement in your brand. And people will always believe what other people say about you more than what you say of yourself.
Yeah, and rightly so. Yeah. So okay, that's a really great type of content to put out there. What when you're thinking about content, what do you prioritize if you're working with new clients and they don't have any content at all yet? Where do you start normally?
So we sit down with our clients. So we start working with, let's say, somebody in our agency. We honestly go through the 6 steps. So we sit down and we go through tell us what your goals are, what do you want to achieve, and then tell us how you're different. No, tell us really how you're different. No, really tell us how you're different. And no, tell us, and then why did you start? Why did you get into this? And like, that process of really pulling out of somebody how they are different and what, because they've so oftentimes they've forgotten.
Hmm.
They've forgotten what really makes their service unique and all of that. So you have to do that first before you can do the content.
Hmm.
And then what we do is we look at establishing the content pillars. So we look at what type of awareness content that we can generate. Now, awareness content is you're not selling, you're not giving advice, it's not advocate. Awareness content would be, it could be just depending on the individual. So it has to be authentic. So it could be, let's say that you're a holistic therapist. It's maybe a photograph of you walking in the woods or doing what you do or giving your thoughts about whatever's going on. Or maybe, you're a person who doesn't really want to do that. So maybe it's an inspirational quote or it's something that means something to you. Or, maybe it's, we do some lovely awareness content for let's say for a hotel and they feature all their employees, so if you're selling a service, it's really good to feature employees because they are the service, the product. That's awareness content. Consideration content is that positioning content. It's that where advice, that's where you position yourself in the eyes of your ideal customer. That's where you talk about their problems and how you can solve them. And that's consideration content. Sales content, then, if you're selling a service, it's more than likely a lead magnet rather than the service itself. And then the advocate content is again, I've talked you through that.
Yeah, and so let me ask you about lead magnets because I'm interested in the different approaches. So typically, when I start making a lead magnet, and just for anybody who's not familiar with that term, that's what we call the free content that we give people in order to get their email address. So you put in your email address in here, and we will give you this free resource of some kind. I always go down the rabbit hole of I start to make the lead magnet and then I make it more and I make it more and suddenly I end up with something that's half a book already. So I always find I have to pull back from that. How do you think about lead magnets? Can you tell me a little bit what makes an ideal lead magnet for you? Can you tell me a little bit of what that actually looks like? How many pages or what, is it video or how do you do that?
Yeah, so it's actually really hard to put a good lead magnet together because if you're a coach or a consultant and you're usually used to helping people, you will want to put too much into it. And if you put too much into it, then people will download the lead magnet and they'll go away and they won't need you. So your lead magnet has to not be too detailed. Your lead magnet, again, another mistake people make when they're creating lead magnets is that it must lead on to whatever you want to sell the person. So it must appeal to the person who matches the profile of your ideal customer. Okay. So oftentimes I see people creating lead magnets. I'm like, it's never going to bring them the people that they eventually want to sign up. So it must be targeted at the right people. It must be the right content. It must be not that detailed. So you want to be thinking about giving people like an overview of a process that you follow, but not necessarily the detail of the process. So they need to understand what the process is. And like if they want to go and research every one of the steps of the process themselves, off with them, they could spend a huge amount of time doing it, but they can save all that time if they go directly back to you to help them implement the process. So it's an overview. So in your lead magnet, you want to have the overview of the process. You want to also maybe include some testimonials of people who have followed that process with the formula, the greatest benefit, the time frame, and the emotions. And then you also want to profile yourself because at the end of the day, people have to get to know, like, and trust you as an individual if they're going to use you.
Yeah, and that's particularly important where your business is based around you as some sort of expert or consultant because people aren't buying a bar of chocolate, they're entering a relationship with you. And so they need a much higher standard of trust. And I think that's
Exactly.
why that's
And
really
then,
important.
and then the design of the lead magnet is important too, because people are going to make an assumption of the quality of your service based on what it looks like. So
Yeah.
all of those things, yeah, it's not that, you think, oh yeah, it's easy. It's not that easy. And it's hard. And to get it, once you get it right though, you can scale.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really important is to have it in line with that service. Whatever the ultimate service is that you're providing and the benefits that come from that. I think that if you work backwards from that, so in the past, I've been guilty of creating lead magnets just because it was something that I could create. rather than saying, okay, this is the end goal is to have somebody purchase this service from me. And so to result in an engagement like that, what is the steps that take them to there, and working backwards to create the lead magnet? I found that to be much more conducive to creating something that actually works.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally agree.
Cool. Okay. Well, this is really fascinating stuff. I hope it's useful for you. I want to ask you, because I have some questions that I always ask in every interview. I want to ask you, what is the number one tip that you'd give somebody who wants to build their personal authority?
Okay, to build authority, first of all, you need to be very clear on who you're serving. Then you need to create content which solves their problem. So you need to create that consistently, but then you got to get the balance right, that you don't want to give away so much free content that they never need to reach out to you. So it's about getting that balance right, positioning yourself, helping your ideal customer, giving them enough, but not too much. And not being afraid to actually have lead magnets, run webinars, and ask for the business. Sometimes you can be incredibly busy on social media, being fantastic, and people think you're fantastic, but until you ask them for the business, sometimes you don't get it. Like, even just to, like, if you're really active on social media, sometimes you can just like run a lead format and get 10 amazing leads that all convert. Happy days.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that I probably don't ask for the sale enough. I think that that's probably something that a lot of people who are maybe more introverted, or not as confident, but a lot of us hold back. We don't kind of put ourselves out there and make the a clear call to action, or a clear call for a sale. So it's certainly something I always think about, as something that I try and work on. Okay, so you know that I like to talk about mistakes and failures, because I've experienced so many of them over the course of my business. And every single successful person that I've talked to in business has had a lot of failures in their backstory. And that's the part that we don't get to see. When you see somebody's Instagram, you think everything is smiley and everything, but it's tough sometimes, and people learn from mistakes. So, can you tell us about a mistake or failure that you've experienced in business and what you learned from it?
Actually, a conversation has reminded me of one. So I remember doing a webinar once and having a pitch at the end of it, because you have something to sell at the end of it. But the mistake I made was, as I was saying to you, I genuinely, what drives me is I love helping people. And in the webinar, I gave away too much. And at the end of it, people were like, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Goodbye." So I remember doing a webinar and coming away with zero sales and being really deflated. It's not even about, for me, it's not even about it wouldn't even be about the financial gain. It'd be about the numbers. So, and having to go away from that and go, okay, what did I do wrong there? And then putting your webinars together, and then the next time changing your tactics and looking to see what your conversion rate was. And then, so one mistake was getting zero conversions because I used the webinar as like a training course, and it just gave away far too much information. Then eventually I've kind of refined and refined and refined and refined, and I have it down now. And then last year I got bored. I said, I'm going to change this up. And I went back, and what did I do? I went back to what I do best, giving away too much information, and it showed in the numbers. So that would be my mistake. And I have to check myself that I don't do it, and not being afraid. This is a good bit of advice for people. If you have a formula that's working, don't be afraid to keep repeating it.
That's a great point. Yeah. Let me ask you: is there any way that you can quantify how much is okay to give away and how much is not? Because that's something I wonder about, and like I said about the lead magnets, I fight with this myself a bit. How do you know?
You'll know by your conversion rate at the end of a webinar.
Is there any rule of thumb that you would use about how much of the how content that you like, the how-to content? Because I know I heard somebody describe this as, oh, you tell them what to do but not how to do it. But by telling them what to do, you're kind of telling them how to do it. So I
Oh,
get
you're
confused
not.
with
No,
that.
no. You talk about you give people again an overview, but no detail. Like no, so, because you won't have time. You
Hmm.
won't have time in the webinar anyhow to give too much detail. But as a rule of thumb, you should be looking for about a 6 to 12 percentage conversion rate on your webinar.
Hmm.
So if you're getting in and around that, well, then your content is good. And if it's not, you need to change it.
Right.
So, at a recent webinar, I can get anything from 19%. I got 30% conversion rate on one webinar, so I know I've got it the balance right. So again, if you're doing a webinar, a live webinar, you need to introduce yourself. You need to tell. You need to give testimony. Like it's the same as the lead magnet. It's the process. It's
Hmm.
the testimonials. It's the getting people to you know get them to understand you understand their problems and that you are the solution. So it's actually very it's you're not really giving away a huge amount, only maybe an overview. But people will still go away from that overview. And if they don't want to, and this is what I like about it, if they don't want to buy, which is completely fine, if you've helped them and and they're happy to go away with that whatever nugget you took from you, that's fine too.
That's a great point. Let me ask: is there a business book or resource that's been important for you, or that you would recommend?
Can I say my own?
Of course, you can.
I am going to say my own. This is my 2023 social media content planner.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, so I do one of these every year. So
Yeah.
this year is the year of the rabbit. So that's why I've got a rabbit on the front.
Okay.
So this content planner is really, really handy because there's a workbook section in it to help you get clear on your message. And to take you through the steps that I've just outlined to you. But there's 400 prompts for special days. Now, we actually use these all the time with our clients. So we have our an electronic kind of content calendar that we use when we're planning our content for our agency clients. And there's always like you're not going to get every day of the month is going to suit. But let's say what date is today? Today is the 30th of May. So today is National Creativity Day.
Okay.
So there's going to be, radio hosts, and there's going to be people on looking for articles related to that. So if you knew, like if last week, and you were putting out something very cool with the hashtags for National Creativity Day, it just helps you show up more consistently. So, and like tomorrow is National Smile Day. Okay, so again, and there's some good ones coming up. So the first is Global Day of the Parents. Again, if you're a parenting expert, so there's 400 prompts in there. We research those every summer. We'll be at them again shortly to make sure that we have. It's just one place. I mean, you can Google them all, but it's one place where everything's together, and you can just plan. You can use it. I use it all the time, as you can see.
Yeah. The well dog-eared page. Yes. That's cool.
That's for sale on Amazon, so that's
Okay,
worldwide.
cool. And
Yeah,
that is the 2023 Social Media Content Planner
yeah.
from Louise McDonnell. So, Louise, where else can people find you online?
So my website is sellonsocial.media.
Cool.
So I have an agency where people can outsource their social media and digital marketing requirements. And then I also have an online academy and an academy where I offer online training, or I also do corporate training. So if people want bespoke training done for an organization, I do that too. So you'll find all the information on sellonsocial.media.
Awesome. Well, Louise McDonnell, thank you so much for coming on the show.